Apostates.
We have applause tonight.
Ooh. Yeah?
Yes. Can you hear it?
Yes, I hear it every time.
Yeah, we actually. In your own head? No, no. We've actually got applause.
Oh, from who?
That's this.
Are you making fun of me?
No, I'm not.
Who applauded me? That's so nice. It's first time on the show, at least. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, it's about time you got a little bit of praise.
All I get is I get cringe rain down on me from you, Isaiah, every time. God damn it! Shut off his mic, that idiot.
Listen, it's about time you got recognized for your lyrical skills. So, good evening, everyone, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Isaiah Carter, and I am coming to you live from the County of Kings, the People's Republic of Brooklyn. And of course, this is Apostate Radio. With me, as ever, my co-host, my man from the land of Apeats, Mr. Nostra Chavez. No, actually, I have something else for you now.
Oh,
I have something else for you. Yes. Yeah, see, I have that. This shout to the Roadcaster duo, which is a game changer. I've already gotten several compliments on this thing in terms of the sound processing and all of this. So I am looking forward to continuing outfitting whatever studio that I create with this. A couple things before we get started. Of course, you can follow me at Isaiah L. Carter, or that's definitely not or, but you can follow Nos at Nostra Chavez on X. You can follow our show page at Apostate Radio NY. And you can also, if you feel so inclined, you can support the show monetarily at buymeacoffee.com/apostate radio. We are up to episode 13.
Damn.
Whew. And pretty soon, there will actually be a change. I will not be coming from the borough of Brooklyn. Yeah. Some things have happened, and I'll explain them more at the end of the show. But also a quick programming note: there will not be a show on May 11th. We are taking a bit of a break so that Mr. Chavez here can celebrate his wife's very first Mother's Day.
Special times, man.
Special time. I am excited for you, brother. You have a beautiful family, and we're looking forward. I look forward to the pictures.
Oh yeah,
I'll send you the pictures and all that. So Lisa Marie says, "Love your views, Isaiah." Thank you, dear. Great to have you with us. So let's get down to it. This is episode 13. We've got a doozy here. You've probably noticed that the last several weeks there's always been a particular situation, there's a particular issue that keeps finding its way into the shows, and that is congestion pricing and other general urbanist stuff. Okay. I moved up here in 2015, been here about 10 years here in New York City. And the changes have been rapid, okay? Congestion pricing being one of the most dramatic changes made in the last several years. The last several months, because it just went into effect earlier this year. A lot of people were very happy about it. Some even partied at the gantries to celebrate a brand new tax on the citizens of New York. And congestion pricing has been in the crosshairs of the Trump administration for, in my opinion, good reason. But it's not enough to hear talk about it. I've talked about it enough when it comes to why I feel, where I feel about it. I actually wanted to bring someone onto the show who supports it, and someone who doesn't support it, and we debate like men and like gentlemen. So to start things off, I am going to bring in a gentleman who is for congestion pricing. He is the Policy and Communications Director for the Riders Alliance, a nonprofit 501c3 operating here in New York City. Very powerful organization these days, though he probably wouldn't admit it. This man is basically the bane of your existence if you own a car. That man is Mr. Danny Perlstein. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, Danny. How you doing?
Good.
Great.
Happy to be here. It's been a great few months of congestion pricing.
Ooh, man, I think there's a couple people in this chat might disagree with you, but
that's all right. All right. That's why I'm here.
Well,
that's why I'm here.
Yeah. You challenged us. You challenged me in particular, and I will give you credit for answering the bell. I'll give you a second, since I know our time is short with you, but if you could please introduce yourself to our viewers, our subscribers. Tell them who you are a little bit and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Danny. It's great to be here with everybody. The Riders Alliance is a grassroots community organization of public transit riders in New York City, holding our elected officials accountable for better transit. A little more than 10 years ago, we noticed that subway delays were mounting, right? They quadrupled from 2012 to 2018. And our governor wasn't hearing us. Our members at the time, this is before my time, our members rode the subway with a cardboard cutout of Andrew Cuomo to win some more transit funding. And over those few years, from then until 2017, when he conceded that, he said congestion pricing is an idea whose time has come. And it was an idea that had been kicking around in the city at least since the 50s. It was first proposed for the subway, that there should be peak hour fares to address crushed loads of commuters. But the subway ridership was actually falling in that era, and it reemerged in the 60s and from then until the present as an idea for the streets. And without transit riders, it wouldn't have happened, right? Michael Bloomberg is the most well-known proponent of congestion pricing, but he couldn't get it through the legislature when he tried in 2007 and 8. It was in 2018 and 2019 when we were pushing that we got it done. It went through a lot of bureaucratic twists and turns, and finally it happened, just 4 months ago. And it's doing well. It's doing, from our perspective, what we said it would do, what it's supposed to do. It's speeding up some of the worst commutes in the country, which are people riding commuter buses from the South Shore of Staten Island to Central New Jersey, Eastern Queens, and Northern Bronx. Those are sped up. It's speeding up car traffic. So drivers are paying, yes, but drivers are getting something invaluable, something that wasn't available at any price before congestion pricing. For just $9, people are saving time. And that is something that people are really relishing. And so the polling that's emerging shows the people happiest with the program are the people paying the toll the most frequently. They're getting the most bang for their buck, the most benefit. But it's also benefiting public transit riders overall, subway riders, and that's over the long haul. So the latest stat is that it's brought in $159 million. That's money that's going to fix the subway. The subway was notably in tatters in the 70s, right? Trains were running off the track. They fixed the tracks. They bought new train cars. But what they didn't do was upgrade the signals. They didn't make the system accessible. They didn't replace the power systems or the structures. And so those are crumbling now. That's what needs to be replaced. And that's what congestion pricing is helping to pay for, I think, for the benefit of everybody in the city. But there's some, sort of bells and whistles beyond that, which are that, traffic crashes are down by half in the congestion zone. Honking complaints are down 70% in the congestion zone. And the people saving the most time are some of the crankiest people, the folks coming in from New Jersey. The Holland Tunnel is moving twice as fast as it used to move before. So That's what we're looking at. That's why we're supporting it. And that's why we're making of course, the Trump administration that the thing is working. It's doing what state and local policy should do, which is to innovate. And we're happy about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that introduction, Danny. Our next guest is.
Wait, before we introduce the next guest,
on.
I just want to say something, Isaiah, to our guest, Danny Perlstein here.
Mm-hmm.
Danny, are you ready for what's about to come your way here?
I'm going to find out, right? But I think so. We've had a lot of concerns and complaints about congestion pricing, and I think I've heard them all. But I'm always open to hearing new ones. All right, I've been talking about it basically every week for 7 years.
Right now, Daniel. I feel like Michael Vick right now because I'm about to release a bulldog on you.
Oh my God! Speaking of, and that's
I have my own rat terrier, so I know a little bit about what that's like.
A rat terrier?
I have a rat terrier.
Oh my
She's
God!
Vicious. She's the smallest ones are the most vicious.
All right.
Oh, okay. All right. So, with that, they've got the gentleman who is here, who is going to talk about congestion pricing. He is against congestion pricing, as I am. He is a real estate guy, a native of New York. He comes to us from the Upper East Side. Ladies and gentlemen, the building bulldog himself, Mr. Charlie Panoff. What's good, brother?
How you doing, Isaiah?
There he is.
Good to see you, sir.
Danny, nice to see you.
Likewise.
So Charlie, I'm gonna give you. Hold on, let me just make sure that my stopwatch is on. I am gonna give you a minute, sir, to introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you doing.
All right. So I was born in New York City, state, hospital, and county. So if anyone says they're more of a New Yorker than I am, they're wrong. I've been here for 41 out of 42 years. I tried living somewhere else and it didn't work. Came right back. Lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I've seen what the car lifestyle looks like for a year. And New York does not have that. A lot of people complain about cars, talk about, well, it's not good for the environment. Everyone relies on their cars. We don't do that here. The biggest issues I have seen with congestion pricing is the fact that the people being hurt by it are the ones that were not intended to pay for it. If this were some sort of a toll, which it is not, because by definition, a toll would be something paying for something that has already been built, which dates back to the idea of toll bridges when they started to repay the ferry operators that they put out of work, who then helped build the bridge. They took out bonds and they repaid those bonds with tolls. This is a tax. This is a tax on anybody that wants to drive south of 60th Street for any reason. It's not about commutes. It's about driving past 60th Street for any reason, with the exception of for hire vehicles who do not have riders in them. And in my opinion, that is the biggest issue on the road we have today. One thing Danny and I definitely agree on, the MTA needs a lot of work. Well, mostly in the subway, also on the buses, but our subway infrastructure is crumbling faster than people realize, and there is a lot of money needed to fix it. However, there are so many ways we could bring that money into the MTA without charging someone $9 because they want to eat dinner downtown and they don't want to take the subway, which is going to add time to their commute if they have access to a car. Personally, I do not own a car. I often have to rent a car for work. If I have to rent a car for work, it's a pain to park on the street. I get it. People do warehouse their cars on the street. I'm not a huge fan of it. Every block has their own little system for it. It's what we deal with as New Yorkers, right? One thing I don't understand about this entire congestion pricing thing, and I wanted to ask Danny right off the bat, is what really is the goal? Because initially when it was brought up, it was get rid of congestion. Ease the traffic, and it was pitched as a climate change issue, get rid of a lot of the issues that were being caused by cars and exhaust. But if that's the goal, then it wouldn't have really raised a lot of money, because then you're not having the cars pay the tax, right? So now we hear it as a way of let's raise the needed money for the MTA, which again, we agree, money's needed. Got to fix it because it is a major problem. So in your mind, which of those two things outweighs the other? Is it the money or is it the less cars?
So it's both, right? And I think the price point is set by economists who pretty successfully calculated how many cars they would take off the road. They take off enough that it makes a difference, that people are saving time, but not so many that it doesn't bring in any money, right? If you raise the price too high, the demand for driving in, is too low and doesn't bring in money. So this is sort of at a sweet spot, I think is the way they see it. It was originally going to be 15. That's not too far off. This is deterring a lot of people from coming in at 9. We don't know if that'll stick, but it's stuck so far for a few months at least. But if it doesn't stick, it'll bring in more money. And so that's the benefit is either you support the subway or you keep your car off the street. And either way, that's benefiting the transit system. Remember, right, it's not just the drivers themselves benefiting. It's the bus passengers. It's people who need an ambulance. It's deliveries, right? We had a guy approach Congressman Mike Lawler at a civic event I was at on Friday. And he said, look, my hardware, business, it's a wholesale business from Jersey. We're saving 2 hours a day on our truck trips, right? That's money in the bank. And, the congressman really he took a minute and thought about that. Right? He's a, steadfast opponent, but he didn't give the guy any argument, right? He took that in because that's money. Time is money.
You're going to have exceptions to everything. I agree. However, for somebody who is commuting 5 days a week, people who have a lot of money in New York are not driving to work. Somebody who lives on 72nd and Park, who works on Wall Street or works in Midtown, work in finance, they're not driving to work. They take a cab, they take an Uber, they take, a black car from some private service, or they hop on the subway or bus. Those people are not paying this tax. The people who are driving, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, with one exception, I would say when we looked at the stats of who drives to work, the largest number percentage-wise are coming from the Senate district on the Upper East Side, Senator Liz Krueger, who's one of the biggest proponents of congestion pricing. 10% of her commuters are paying the toll, which is much more than in any other legislative district, 10%, and their average income is $300,000 a year.
Okay. That's 10%.
Let me just jump in on this, because if there's one thing that has bothered me the most about about congestion pricing, it is that the outer boroughs and the mid and working class people have been completely shut out of this conversation. I see you, Danny, as someone who has, you and these other nonprofits that are pushing this onto the middle class and pushing this onto working class folks. It's like, you guys, I'm just telling you where I'm coming from with this. You guys are taking choice away. I don't own a vehicle, but I know a lot of people in my neighborhood here in Brooklyn who do. Okay. And it's almost like you're penalizing people for actually exercising their right to individual movement. You're impeding people's freedom of individual movement. And it's tough for me also to really get to really be sympathetic to people when they're like, oh my God, I can pay. I paid money to get into the city. I'm like, I don't care so much about that, because guys people in my position, people who work union, people who work like regular union jobs, like transit workers, firefighters, police officers to a certain extent, we've been those titles have been completely shut out, and we're just basically expected to just sit down and shut up and not and just just get with the program. So what gives you the right as a nonprofit? What gives you the right to tell me how I should move?
Okay, so a couple points. There's a lot of different supporters of congestion pricing. There's a really wide range, and Mike Bloomberg is obviously the most well-known one, but there's a really broad range. The real estate board and also tenant lobbies support congestion pricing.
The real estate board does
that
not
means
support congestion pricing.
Regardless,
the real estate board.
Okay, but hang on. So the real estate board actually signed on to the lawsuits to keep congestion pricing. So maybe not individual
here's the thing, Danny.
But let me continue. No, but that's just the start.
But here's the thing. That does not matter to me. As a middle class guy, I don't care about what real estate lobbies and all these other groups. I don't particularly care what they think. All I know, as someone who goes to work Monday through Friday, what I care about is it's going to cost me. It's costing me $9 to drive into the city if I choose to drive through the city. Okay.
But let me tell you how it got passed. So it got passed because we had canvassers and organizers in key assembly districts in Brooklyn and Queens stand at the subway station with burner phones calling assembly members who were on the fence. And these are assembly members who didn't appreciate the number of people in their district who depended on the subway. So they would, our organizer would be there, would say, are you experiencing subway delays? I am, right? Everybody was. This was 2017, the summer of hell, 2018, 2019, terrible service. Are you experiencing subway delays? Do you want your legislator to pass the proposal to fix the subway? There was one proposal on the table, right? There wasn't a multiplicity of choices. This was it. And by and large, we were getting, dozens of calls in to these legislators in Astoria, in Coney Island, in Jamaica, right? Where the people getting on the subway are not, like the upper crust, right? They're working people, right? That's who was going in, in the sort of mid-morning, when we would make a lot of these calls as the assembly member staff were getting to work. And that moved the needle because the speaker, Carl Hastie, said, he wanted to see where the conference was. The way it got killed the previous time, right, was that a few key members of the Democratic conference, the assembly, went to Carl and they said, I can't vote on this. I can't even cast a vote because I'm torn in too many directions by too many different interests. And he protected them as their leader, right? Sheldon Silver at the time, but Carl was going to do the same thing. He's a tough leader. But what he saw was the movement within the body, within the assembly, and it was transit riders moving their assembly members. If
you are claiming to be anticipating the whim of the voters, why not just get the whim of the voters themselves and put it to a referendum vote?
So the polling obviously has shifted. It was
before
decent.
You get to that,
yeah.
Why were you using burner phones?
Oh no, I just mean we had like a bunch. We got a bunch of phones. Like I call them burner phones because they're flip phones, right? Cheap phones that people could call directly and say like, I'm so and so, I'm calling from your district.
You found people who were riding the subway who were disgruntled about the subway, and you said, here, call this number, tell them you don't like the fact that you're waiting for the subway. Of course they're going to call the number. They don't want to wait for the subway. What about
it wasn't hard to do? I'm not telling you it's hard to do. No.
Right.
But let's go to the question. Well, let's go to the question about the referendum, right? I mean, we don't put revenue. We need, as Charlie, as you pointed out, we need a lot of revenue. New York doesn't just need revenue, right, for transit, right? We need a lot of revenue for public safety, for education, for housing, education, whatever. We don't put any revenue measures to a vote. We don't let riders vote on the fare, right? The transit fare is subject to the whim of the governor who controls the MTA board. We don't put that to a popular vote, presumptively because we wouldn't get the money we need. And so instead, we have a system of representative government that decides to raise the revenue that we need so that we can have the services we deserve, right? We don't put the estate tax, the income tax, none of that goes to a vote. That's why this doesn't go to a vote.
Yeah.
So you don't think it might be because you'd lose the vote because
we would lose every vote. Of course it is. We lose every vote. We'd have no money to run the government.
I thought you were on the side of quote unquote saving democracy, Danny. What's like I don't know.
Well,
seems like it's opposite.
So right there's democracy, right? I mean, there's representative democracy that we have a constitutional republic. We don't expect every person to spend their full time like we do, wonking out on all this stuff. People have real jobs, right? And so we elect people whose full-time job it is to figure this stuff out. And, it's a tough job for them and they don't always get it right, obviously, but that's the system, right? I mean, it's imperfect. That's the system. In this case, I say the system worked. Doesn't always work.
It's their job to vote on behalf of their constituents. However, they don't vote on behalf of their constituents. They vote on behalf of the money that's coming out. And the money that's being funneled to the city council and state assembly from organizations similar to yours, and I don't know if yours is one of them, but we can name a few like transportation alternatives and open plans, open streets, all those things.
Well, those are C3s. They don't know they're C3s. They don't donate, right? I mean, they're C3s.
They
right?
do through, but they do. You can funnel the money however you want, but there are other solutions besides taxing the nurses, the teachers, the construction workers who have no choice. Okay. And nobody ever talked about the other solutions. You gave us the history of congestion pricing, but I have solutions for you. I'm not coming here to argue and just whine about it. So I want to get your opinion on some alternative solutions that could both ease congestion and raise money. All right. Which would you like first? Money or congestion?
Oh, so I see. They're not one.
Multiple solutions.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, I think that. Let me just make a point. So I don't remember them exactly, but I saw you had a very comprehensive list because I saw you in an exchange with in social media with Jim Walden, right, the mayoral candidate. You had a lot of ideas out there for Jim Walden, and I thought, like, these are real ideas, right? This is not a joke. And what it reminded me of was there are a lot of actually congestion pricing supporters who don't like the precise plan. They had a better idea, and they're a little bit miffed that their plan didn't get chosen. And again, I sort of go back to what we were just talking about, which is like, this is a sausage making process, right? These are compromises. Everybody who's smart knows exactly how it should have been done, but the precise way it was done doesn't please anybody who's smart, right? Nobody is thrilled.
But there's no way for the average citizen to get their ideas to somebody because you hold hearings in the middle of the day when people are at work, and the only people that can
on
show
our way
up
to work.
So they're not holding meetings at 8 o'clock at night to talk about it. 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, most people can't show up at City Hall and testify, right? And if you submit written testimony, half the time it doesn't get read, and it doesn't get read the right way, right? So it is a bit of a rigged system. You have organizations like Riders Alliance and others that have people that are actually getting paid to go testify on behalf of these things. You have people that are showing up for this, last, 2 weeks ago with this universal daylighting bill. The only people that showed up were the people from the transportation alternative side of things that want to just get rid of parking in favor of bikes. Now, I don't know where you sit on the bike fence, but we do agree that transportation in terms of mass transit needs fixing. So let's just stick to that. We can complain about bikes or argue about them another time. All right. But one thing that bikes are doing is not raising the money that cars raise. And it's on many different levels. Now, the NYPD just said that they were going to start giving tickets to people who are running red lights and stop signs on their bike. I have a summons in my wallet just to prove to people I got pulled over for failing to yield to a pedestrian 2 years ago. Okay. I paid the ticket. I didn't agree with it. I fought it. I lost. Big deal. $50, moved on. On the back of that summons, it has a list of all the bike violations as well as all the car violations. It's $190 if you run a stop sign or a red light on a bike. Have you ever seen anyone get pulled over on a bike?
My wife, repeatedly.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
Did you
Your
pay
wife needs to stop
$190?
driving so recklessly, Danny.
I know. I told her, slow down. No, she paid it. I mean, I think she paid it. And yeah, I mean, it's to me, look, I mean, I ride a bike sometimes. I haven't ridden this year, which is depressing to me. And I ride for transportation, recreation, exercise, all the good reasons. So, but I also get where you're coming from. And, the city is, it takes all modes. It takes all modes.
Okay.
Is what I'll say.
So,
yeah.
But it actually doesn't. Hold a second, Charlie. Hold on. It actually doesn't. It really doesn't, because no one except City Bike is a scam, right? I'm just gonna go ahead. Like I don't particularly care what you think on this, Danny. When I look at a program that charges you $25 for a day pass, okay, and then you got 30 minutes to ride to the next dock to avoid getting charged.
Wow.
It's like, no, that is a scam. And then on top of that, when I look at like in the middle of the day, I have to be to work 2:30. Okay, just to give you some, I have to be to work at 2:30 every like Monday through Friday. Whenever I'm out and about, I'm looking at these city bike docks, and every day when I look at them, most of them are full. They might have like 5 or 6 in a dock.
Yeah, if it's a scam, it's not working, right? I mean, that's the thing. Maybe you're right. It's too expensive.
It's not working. I mean, everything, like all of this urbanism stuff over that we've had to deal with as New York residents, all they're doing is they are manufacturing the problems that we complain about. We complain about the congestion. Okay, we complain about like the car traffic. Well, I have several examples of things that DOT, who are basically your enforcement arm at this point, creating situations where the congestion is now worse in a neighborhood. So now you have the pretext that you need to then spread congestion pricing throughout the rest of the boroughs. And it's just not right. It's not right at all. Like congestion pricing, I mean, City Bike, getting back to my original point, City Bike is a scam. It's just completely out of place. All it's doing is taking up space and eating parking spots. I know you probably feel differently, but that's just me.
We can get to City Bike in a minute. Let's just stay on this idea of how to raise money for a second.
Sorry about that. Go yeah, go ahead.
One thing that I actually agree with that the MTA has done, aside from a lot of the lost millions of dollars, and I don't know why we don't audit them. However, the switch to Omni has worked. Okay, most people
I will agree with that.
All right,
I'll agree with that.
And the nice thing about that is they're getting more data, right? They're getting data on who's riding, when they're riding, where they're riding, more so than they were with Metro cards. The one thing that they can do is people who don't live in the city, they can pay a premium to use our transit. If you added 50 cents or $1 a day to a tourist, they're still going to use the subway. They're probably not even going to notice it. We'll tell them because it's wrong to do it without. But how much money would that bring in alone? That right there would equal a huge chunk of what you're getting in congestion pricing. And that's somebody who's using the system that the money is going towards. So that brings me back to the original idea of a toll bridge. That toll is going to the system. Cars have nothing to do with the subway. It's a choice, one or the other. Am I going to get in the car? Am I going to get on the subway? Why should I have to pay for the subway if I'm getting in the car and vice versa? None of the money from the subway is going to improve the roads.
Well, so it's funny you should say that. If everyone drove into the Manhattan Central Business District, there are different estimates, but if everyone who traveled in there did that, and it's something we haven't discussed, but before congestion pricing, close to 9 out of 10 commuters were coming in by public transit. But if all those folks got in their cars and drove, you would need a parking structure the size of Central Park, 30 stories high. And that's not to say we would ever have that, but the point is, the streets would be impassable if even a big chunk of subway riders got in their cars and got on the road to get into the most congested place in North America, which is the congestion relief zone. So everyone who's driving there, as well as bus passengers, as well as anyone who ever needs an ambulance that has to drive on the street, otherwise we're all going to be airlifted, in an emergency. Everyone who's driving there owes a debt to transit riders. And congestion pricing helps to pay that debt and keep everyone else in transit to keep the system alive after decades of disinvestment.
Wait a minute. But who are you to make that determination, though, Danny? I'm dead serious. Who are you to make that determination? Especially when a lot of native are you from here? How long have you lived here? What gives you the right to say that about to just make that blanket determination that people who are able to exercise their individual movement, their right to individual movement. What gives you the right to make that determination that they owe a debt to transit riders?
We're just talking about the laws of physics, right? If the other folks weren't in transit and were in cars, the drivers wouldn't be able to get anywhere. So it's not a moral question. It's not about punishment. It's about physics. I'm sorry?
Most of those people don't own cars.
But if they had to resort to them, what if they look? There's a lot, transit riders, right? Some of them can afford cars. Many of them have cars and don't drive them in. If they all had to drive them in, no one would get anywhere at all. Literally,
But nobody's saying
commerce would
that's
stop.
going to happen.
I'm not saying that,
If
yeah, no
NBA
one's
were
saying
to
that would
cease to
happen.
exist, yes, but
Right,
we're
but we
working on a
need-
solution to make sure that doesn't happen without penalizing people who are just making a simple choice. Okay, but here's one of the biggest things that nobody talks about, and you brought it up with you would have to have a large parking structure if everyone drove in. We do have parking structures. Most of them are subgrade, below ground, underneath buildings. They are anchor tenants for rental buildings, for commercial buildings. They're keeping the cost of maintenances down in co-ops. They're keeping the cost of common charges and taxes down in condos. They are down between 21 and 28% in transient vehicle spaces being taken since congestion pricing.
Oh,
You know how much money comes in from parking tax in New York City?
It's significant.
What's
It's definitely
big?
significant. I don't know. You know
Half
what?
$1 billion. $500
Whoa.
million.
Whoa.
Yeah. $500 million. Now, some of that is from monthly spaces. However, most of the monthly space money gets rebated back to you if you're a citizen.
Right. I've seen that on the garage signs. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
So you pay it and then you get it back every quarter, right? So about half of that, so $250 million, is from transient parking. So if let's just use 20%.
So for the sake of argument, right, we're losing $50 million a year. Okay, so I think, look, I mean,
No, you're losing about $100 million a year.
Okay, but it's a knock-on effect. I mean, what I would say, so it's interesting. So you're telling me that a lot of them are below grade, which I've seen. There's a lot of above grade ones. I think, there's a real, obviously, shortage of land. I think
over
if some of them decide
90% of parking in Manhattan, in the central business district, over 90% is below ground.
Right, but I'm saying the above ones, like the pressure is, and I've seen actually applications to convert below grade space to retail, I think in Brooklyn. But I think if some of that converts, I think so much the better. Like if we can make better use of our incredibly scarce space in the central business district, and arguably that's what we're doing by getting buses moving faster on the street. If we do that though on private property where the garages are, like we all benefit from that, right? If we don't need as much car storage and we can afford to convert to housing or retail or whatever, so much the better.
So you cannot convert anything subgrade to housing. Okay, that's never going to change in zoning because of danger.
Right. We don't
but
want
the
mold.
bigger issue is you already have large garage owners. And I happen to have one as a client and a friend who I had a large conversation with this week, who then got numbers from his, cohorts from 3 of the largest garage operators in the city. They have all had to go and renegotiate their rents because they can't afford them. Now, if they shut their garages and they walk away because they, have an LLC that claims bankruptcy, get out of their lease, do you know what that does to the rest of the tenants in that building? We're already talking about rents being high. Now you're going to see them skyrocket 3, 4, 5 times what they are now, because the taxes aren't changing on the underlying ground. So the city is losing their $100 million in the tax from the transient parking. Now you have the garages who are not able to pay their rent, just like if you have a mall in the suburbs and Macy's closes, the rest of the stores leave because one, it's coming, and 2, the rents are too high, and the Claires can't afford to be there, right? So it's going to have this cascading effect up. The reason people buy co-ops a lot of times is because of the financial aspect. The best way to buy a co-op is to have something with either retail space or garage space because it offsets your maintenance. That's the best financials of any co-ops in the city, all have garages underground. If those garages can't pay their rent, everyone's maintenance goes up. You add that to their mortgages, people can't afford to buy. Now they start selling. Now you have people leaving. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years down the line. None of this was thought through. I didn't see anything. And I read studies, I read the white papers, I read everything. And the real estate impact of congestion pricing on the buildings that are in the central business district based on garages alone. Forget about foot traffic on retail. Retail spaces, they've been empty already before congestion pricing. So I'm not even going to use that argument because it's pointless. But garages keep the city running at a reasonable rate. Is it a good rate? No. But they keep it running at a reasonable rate. If somebody has to drive to the doctor, my mother's 82 years old this coming Thursday. She has a broken pelvis right now. If she has to go to the doctor, she can't necessarily afford to take a cab to and from. She's on a fixed income. She cannot ride the bus. It's uncomfortable. My stepfather has a car. Now it costs him $9 to drive her there, plus gas and everything else. Why should she have to pay that? We're not talking about somebody who's commuting in. We're not talking about somebody who has a lot of money. We're talking about somebody who is in need of going to a doctor just because the doctor's on 58th Street, 2 blocks away. What about cancer patients who have to go in for daily treatment? Sloan Kettering has facility just south of the line. People who are going for chemotherapy, they can't ride the subway. They have absolutely no way of getting there other than a car. But they don't qualify for a handicap.
No, but you can get a temporary handicap.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Somebody in my mother's situation, we looked into it. You cannot.
But the cancer, I mean, maybe not your mother, because if that's more of a one, but like the more routine it is, the cancer treatments, you can get a temporary handicap.
It's a long-term thing. If you're there for over a year, if it's over a year, that's the length of time. So if somebody has a broken leg and they have to get to their doctor and they can't get on the subway up and down, or they can't get on a bus because they can't sit on a bus. They can't stand on a bus. The bus is crowded. Why should they have to pay? They shouldn't. Okay? There are people with 6 months to live with terminal cancer who are just trying to strive by with that 6 months. They don't qualify because of that year limit. They can't afford it. They're not working anymore. They're not getting anything extra from the government. Okay? Now, the biggest issue with cars in the congestion zone are not private car owners. They're for-hire vehicles. If you stand on any corner, anywhere in Midtown or downtown Manhattan, and you counted the cars, I guarantee you, any time of day, the majority, the license plate would start with a T, because they're all Uber and Lyft. Forget yellow cabs. Yellow cabs are going to be grandfathered into everything, and it's a dying business, sadly, and we need to do what we can to help those guys, right? But Uber and Lyft has come in with so many cars, and they are the ones who are creating the congestion. The biggest issue with that is, while they are riding around without a customer in the back, they're looking for a fare. And what are they doing to look for that fare? They're looking at their phone over here as they're driving. And you wouldn't believe the percentage of minor car accidents. We're not talking about people dying. I'm talking about fender benders. All right. They are from Uber and Lyft and other for-hire vehicles who are looking at their phone, trying to get a fare while they're driving, and they miss the red light. They don't see the car stop in front of them, and so on. Those cars should not be allowed to be moving without a passenger in them. They should have areas for them to wait, just like at the airport. All right. If you're a for-hire vehicle or a cab at the airport, you have a waiting area, you get a customer, and you're gone. You get a little piece of paper, you show the guy at the gate a little piece of paper, and you're off with your fare. Okay. All those city bike racks that are sitting there holding bikes, they're taking up space from parking. Now, we can call it a conspiracy, or we can say it's true, whether or not it was to get rid of parking to make it harder for people to have a car. But the fact of the matter is, the bulk of them are taking up space on the street. There's no reason they can't be on the sidewalk. If the sidewalk's too narrow, you can move it to the closest sidewalk. You can have it follow the same rules as a food cart, because it's about the same width, and I believe it's 12 feet from the building where you can then have it. All of those zones can be waiting zones for for-hire vehicles. You've automated, not you, but the city has already automated ticketing. I got a ticket from 2 buses taking a picture of me letting my 82-year-old, well, 81 now, soon to be 82, let's not age her, but soon to be 82-year-old mother out of the car, 3 minutes. I was in the space for 3 minutes, and 2 buses took a picture of me, 3 minutes, letting someone who cannot walk out of the car. I got a $50 fine for that. There was no one who came by. It was 2 buses went by, took a picture, automated ticket. They're putting cameras on the front of all the street sweepers. So that's going to help with people who don't adhere to alternate side of the street parking. They should get ticketed. Does it suck to get a ticket? Yes, but those are the rules, and we should all follow them. All right. But now we have this army of people walking around for no reason.
One quick correction. We started with temporary handicap parking permit. It is something that you can get according to, let me just pull this up here. Whoops. Give me 1 second here while I add this to
Oh, and he's gone.
All right, go ahead. Keep on going, Charlie. We lost Isaiah. He got abducted by extraterrestrials. Go ahead.
Well, soccer
It'll be
ball
all right.
came in from outer space. Knocked him out.
Yes.
So,
it'll be okay.
just real quick, you weren't here in the early 90s, I'm assuming.
He's
Okay.
I'm
in the
the
early
same age
90s.
as you, and I was born and raised in Brooklyn.
Oh, you were? Okay, great. So do you remember what the quote unquote meter maids or the traffic enforcement people used to wear?
You know, were they dressed like traffic enforcement agents? They were what?
Brown,
Well, they were called
brown
brownies. Were
uniforms.
they brownie? Were there brownie uniforms back then? Okay.
Yeah, brown
Yeah.
pants, brown shirts, okay? And people referred to them as brownies because of their shirts and pants. David Dinkins decided that was not racially appropriate because there were some people that also had brown skin. So they changed them to blue. And then people thought that they were cops. So that's when they ended up as part of the NYPD. However, they have no authority as a police officer. They cannot write a moving violation. They can't help you if you're getting mugged. They don't have anything to do with arrests. However, they have cars. I don't know why. To have a traffic enforcement agent double parked creating traffic makes no sense. But we have this army of people now that their job has been automated by cameras for the most part. Okay. Those are the people that can then make sure that you take them out of the NYPD's budget, throw them back to the DOT, and you make sure that they're the ones keeping the for-hire vehicles from leaving their waiting space without somebody. Okay. And at the same time, you give them the ability to give bikes moving violations, because the police, even if you give them the directive to do it, they don't have time. I know a lot of cops. They don't have time to. The 19th precinct is so jammed up with theft, both on the street and home invasion and like burglary. They can't focus on anything else. So take the traffic agents. Now you make them the bike agents and the for-hire vehicle, supervisors, if you want to call them that. You give them a purpose because their job's been made obsolete with cameras. Now you have people with no added money to the budget. You have less cars on the road. You've gotten more money coming into the MTA from people who are using the actual service who don't live here, because if you live here, you should get a break on it. You want to have some sort of congestion pricing? That's fine. However, it sets a really bad precedent for the rest of the country, because the next time a small town wants to build a library or a rec center, and they are the only gas station within 50 miles along I-80 in the middle of the country, they can then put a toll on you getting off the highway to get gas, when before they couldn't. And once somebody catches on to that, you're going to start seeing tolls and taxes pop up everywhere. And if you're a truck driver or you're on a road trip and you want to stop and get gas in Jonesville, Iowa, which is probably not a place, I just made that up, you can't. Because on top of the price of gas, now you got to pay a tax for them to build their rec center. You're never going to see the rec center. That's my point in saying the people driving, if they're choosing to drive, that money, if you're going to give them some sort of a tax, should be going to fix the streets. If you drive in from Westchester right now, you live up in Inwood, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you drive in from Westchester, as soon as you cross that line into the Bronx, what happens? Potholes everywhere. Your car's going all over the place and you wish you had four-wheel drive, because we don't fix the potholes here. All the money that DOT gets is going to building bike infrastructure. Again, I don't know if you're for the bike thing or not for the bike thing. It doesn't matter.
I see a lot of street resurfacing up in Inwood, and if we're talking about the highways, that's state resurfacing. And let me just touch on the gas station and the rec center idea, though.
Because it's made
Sorry?
the last 3 years.
Say that
Street
again.
resurfacing is made the last 3 years because the unions want the job to keep going. If you go to other cities, they don't resurface the streets. You know how often Boston has to resurface their streets? Never, because it's done with different asphalt. We constantly are doing it, just like we're constantly repainting bridges. You notice that? Every bridge always being painted. Why? Use better paint. So the city's always going to waste money on stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is it cost over $3 million to paint a bike lane green from 57th Street to 96th Street on 3rd Avenue. Why? Why did we spend $3 million to paint a bike lane green from 57th Street to to 96th Street on 3rd Avenue when we already had one on 1st Avenue. We already had one on 2nd Avenue. We took away parking spaces. We made congestion by eliminating another lane for a bus lane, which I actually think bus lanes are great. However, the problem with bus lanes is when people block them. The bus has to go around, and that's what causes problems. Every bus lane should have a curb. If you put a curb in between the bus lane and the rest of the street, you then cannot block the bus lane. You want to talk about speeding up buses? Put a curb in between the bus lane and the rest of the lanes, and those buses will speed up because they will not have to go around anybody.
My apologies for the technical difficulties on my end. You guys
You were
haven't
applying for the temporary handicap thing. I know.
Yeah, I've been. I'm sorry about that. I do apologize. Some technical issues on my end. I think we're okay. I think we're okay. What? Let me see.
Hey, Danny, did you want to respond to any of that? What Charlie just said, or Charlie?
I was waiting to hear from Isaiah. I was waiting to hear Isaiah's question.
You don't want to respond to anything Charlie just said at all? Charlie
No,
just hit
I
you
didn't
with,
have
Charlie
a
hit you with
question.
a lot of things.
I don't know. I don't know about the bike lane on 3rd Avenue.
I would ask. Let me ask you. Hang on one second.
Sure,
I'm going to ask you this. So, I think Charlie asked a great question. What was the number, Charlie? $5 million to paint?
$3 million.
$3 million. Why did it cost $3 million to paint whatever the hell they were painting? What was
Labor.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know anything about the project. What I would shed light on is and I don't want to highlight this too much, but there's an apparent contradiction, right? If the unions, as you say, are making sure we resurface every 3 years, you're also claiming the streets are riddled with potholes. What I see is there's a deep frustration, but what I'm not worried about, to go to the heart of the point, I'm not worried about a toll or a tax at every exit on I-80 to build a rec center, because that's not in the town's interest, right? They don't want to deter people from getting off the road in their town and buying gas. They're right there making money on that sales tax, right? That's not going to happen.
They're the only gas station.
But they're not. I mean, the country's more developed. The country's more developed than that. And the other important point here is,
not in every place.
But hang on a second.
There are places even in my home state of Maryland with only one gas station. Man, come on.
Hang on a second. So, but again, people have big tanks. My point is really that, having followed this very closely, the federal approval process for congestion pricing, which, as you pointed out, Isaiah, at the top, they're trying to claw back. It was incredibly arduous and exacting, right? This is something that took the wherewithal of the city of New York, the nation's largest city, the MTA, the nation's largest transit operator, the state of New York, the state DOT. This is not something that a small town in Pennsylvania or Wyoming, is going to contemplate and go through all the rigmarole to get. This is a one-shot deal. We got it, but other places are not going to get it.
If that were true,
we were the pioneer.
Exactly.
The first guy that built the bridge, it was a lot harder than the second guy.
I'm not worried about interstate.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I am though. Because and I'm gonna tell you why. And well, yeah, you do. And here's why. Okay, because there are people all throughout social media who are big congestion pricing fans. Okay, they are urbanists all over this country, whether they're in Portland, whether they're in Los Angeles, Chicago, Roanoke. There's one in particular who you may or may not know.
Who the hell are these people, anyways?
There's all sorts of people on Twitter.
Backwards to pay $10 every time.
No. You're not going to get off that easy, Danny.
Someone on Twitter calls me a communist. Hold on. Someone calls me a communist on Twitter. No one calls me a communist in real life. I would derive the lesson I always derive, which is Twitter is not real life. It's not.
Well, I do think you're a communist. I think you put a very nice spin on it. I think you're probably one of the friendliest communists that I've met. But in all seriousness,
let me lock my door.
New York City. No, hold on. Let me just say this. New York City is the petri dish for spreading congestion pricing nationwide. Okay, because and else there wouldn't be so many other organizations throughout the country that have this, that all have a vested interest in what goes on here. I just don't understand. Like, you have people, again, Andy Bowe now from what
We lost you.
Yep.
Well, what do you say to that, Danny?
half of his feed is stuff about New York City. So again, it's like, go ahead.
But to your point, I think that, you know, what I do say about that, and I may be speaking for myself, but I think for a lot of folks, you know, who are not happy with what they're seeing in Washington right now, right, they're sort of in a dark place. And for a lot of those same folks, they're seeing what they see as a successful policy unfold in New York, which is something that is working as advertised, even if it isn't perfect and isn't making exactly everyone happy, that it's functional. And I think people are excited about that, the proof of concept that policy can work. Not exactly our congestion pricing program, which isn't portable somewhere else, but that in general, you know, we can have a persistent problem like congestion that causes, you know, immense waste for families and firms, like a subway that hasn't been properly funded. We can have that problem and actually tackle it, rather than, as it often feels like in this country, you know, being flat on our backs in the face of like crises that demand attention, right? We can take the bull by the horns, which is, I think, what this policy does.
Charlie, what do you have to say about that? Because Isaiah, I think, is in the nether realm.
Damn it. This thing,
Yeah,
no, I don't
can
know
hear you. We
what.
can hear you
I
now.
don't know
We can hear you now, Isaiah.
No,
Your
what
video's
I'm
frozen
saying
for
is,
some reason, but
what
don't
I'm
worry about it.
saying is the policy is bad. Okay, you can talk a wonderful game about how everyone wants to see policy work. Everyone wants to, okay, great. This is a policy I don't want to see work, because I know what happens next after this. The C40 document is a very real thing, where this is the pretext. Congestion pricing is the pretext to 15-minute cities. It is the way, it is the first step in limiting people's individual movement such that government controls every single way that a person moves.
And then before you know it, Danny, you're eating bugs.
I mean,
You're
listen,
living in a closet.
yeah.
You're living in a
I mean,
closet with
you
your
know,
family.
Midtown
You
Manhattan
own
is
nothing, and you're
different.
gonna like it, according to Klaus Schwab.
Midtown is different from most places in the country in that it's already overwhelmingly served by transit, and people already overwhelmingly get there by transit. So very few people are even like having their behavior changed by this program. And the idea that this is, you know, a plot to trap people in their neighborhoods, you know, when you can walk from one neighborhood to another in New York City, you know, is ridiculous. I think if we got down the road and we were living in an authoritarian regime, you know, the sources of it would be so far afield from something like this, right? They would be restrictions on the press, restrictions on freedom of expression, freedom of worship, right? They wouldn't be, oh, you have to pay $9 to drive, because you know what? It already costs people a bunch of money to drive, right? People are already paying gas, they're paying insurance, they're paying car payments, right? They're paying other tolls, right? This is a marginal increase, you know, and this is why most of the people paying it are happy about it, because it fits into their overall lifespan, and it saves them time that they otherwise lack, right? This is
accumulation of monetary expenses that keep on adding up and adding up and adding up, with not much say from the people, from the working class, from the poor.
I mean, the people of the working class and poor are overwhelmingly on the train. You know, we saw data from the Community Service Society. Low-income workers in the city depend on transit versus driving 50-1. So yes, there may be, and I think this came up at the top, but I didn't get to say this, there may be, as the study puts it, 5,000 low-income people who drive to work in Manhattan every day, but the New York Times spent 4 months looking for them and couldn't find a single one. The reporter constantly was beating down everybody's door. He talked to me, he talked to everybody. He could not, they killed the story. They could not find a single person struggling, you know, to who was anticipating paying the toll. It didn't happen. And it's because there's already a lot of expense.
12 phone numbers right now.
Who did
And
they
they
ask?
certainly- and they certainly
ask,
didn't ask
Danny?
me.
Who are these people that
I mean, the reporters,
I
they
mean,
spent months on it trying to report a story. They could not
I
get
can
it
give you
done.
3 firemen right now. 3 firemen who no longer.
I can give you a bunch of transit workers. I can give you a bunch of transit workers. I
There
can
is
give you
one-
cops,
there's- so there's
firefighters,
one-
the whole bit.
There's one bus depot in the zone, right? There's a bus depot on 54th Street. Other transit workers report to work elsewhere. There are firehouses, absolutely. And a lot of those folks may be commuting before 5 in the morning. And, you know, if I would revise the policy today, I would make the temporary disability exemption more dynamic. You know, we didn't get to the brass tacks of it, but I'd make sure it was dynamic. And the other piece of it is, right, if you drive into the zone before 5 a.m., you're paying $2.20. I don't see why we're treating people who have an early shift very different from a late shift, right? If you're getting off work at midnight, you should also get to pay that $2.20. I think that's fair. But the problem is we're trapped in a regime because of the strictures of the federal review process where it's going to take a while for us to be able to make those modifications. But when the time comes and we think the program will last while we can tweak it, it'll get tweaked.
So,
well,
first off,
go ahead, Danny. I'm sorry, Charlie. Sorry.
This is the only place in the country that you cannot drive without paying some sort of a tax. Period. End of story. There is no other area in this whole country that you can't get to without paying. So that is what sets the precedent. And yes, I gave an example of an obscure gas station in the middle of nowhere, but you're going to see people start doing it eventually. It's going to happen. All right. Now, why wasn't it done avenue by avenue or street by street? Give people the option. If they want to sit in traffic and save money, let them sit in traffic and save money. You make, 3rd Avenue and 2nd Avenue, you got to pay to use it. Just like you have express lanes in a lot of places in the country. You got to pay the $2.20 to drive in DC if you want to avoid some traffic. That could have been done very easily. You probably would even raise more money without all this fuss to do it. All right. But here's my biggest question. You are advocating for taxing people who are not using a service that is run by people who have not been properly audited and have been running at a loss for decades. Why are they not being held accountable before we implemented any of this?
You said at the top, and I think it's an important concession, that we know the transit system needs a lot of money. Now, how much money it needs exactly is tough to pin down, right? It's a really big system. It's running an asset that's estimated worth is $1.5 trillion that, much of it dates back well over a century. Why? It's vast. Why what?
Why does it have to be so big?
Why does the MTA have to be so big? Because it moves 6 million people every day. Say again?
Break it up.
I mean,
why do the bus operators have to be run by the same people as the train operators? Why does the LIRR and the Metro North trains have to be run by the same organization? You start separating it and you're going to start finding out where the money's going.
I mean,
break it up.
It's certainly possible.
It's a monopoly. That's what the federal government would do with a company. Break it up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at better run transit systems that are, producing more on-time performance and faster speeds and all that stuff, none of them are broken up, right? The Paris Metro, the Hong Kong,
I believe
right?
Atlanta is, isn't it?
Atlanta?
Isn't MARTA broken between between the trains and the buses?
I don't think it is, but MARTA is not comparable to the MTA. To compare something to the MTA, you have to look outside the country.
You can't compare anything to the MTA because
Washington,
it's so big.
D.C. would be the closest thing that you could compare between D.C. but to New York.
Right.
That would
and the difference there is the whole system was built post-war, and it doesn't have the wear and tear that our system has, and that's why it looks like it's in the future, and we look like we're in the past.
So break it up.
Yeah.
Now, one of the largest things that we've done in this country to raise money was World War II. I don't know how much you know about World War II, but I happen to know a lot because I'm a nerd. All right.
What was the marginal income tax?
We could be selling MTA savings bonds and raise so much money purely on.
I got news for you. We do that, but it doesn't get us where we want to be. And the reason it doesn't get us, but the reason it doesn't get us to where we want to be is that we're already paying with our fare 25 cents on the dollar to the bondholders, right? We're already 25% of the operating budget is debt service.
Enforcing everybody paying the fare.
Well,
why are there test programs?
Okay, hold on, but I got a good answer to that. So we spend $700 million a year on law enforcement in the subway. Fare evasion is roughly $700 million, it's estimated, and we're spending billions more on new fare gates. We're making an immense investment, but as you and I were just discussing online the other day, you got to spend money to make money. The reason we don't squeeze people for every last fare is it would be inordinately expensive to do that. Instead, we're going to do a better job than we do today.
To me, the idea of spending, what'd you say? How much is it for the new fare gates?
It's going to be north of $1 billion. I don't know how much farther,
Okay.
but definitely.
How much is it to put in one elevator in a subway station?
It depends tremendously on the site conditions. There's
on average, not $1 billion.
I don't know what the average is.
Okay, a lot less. Wouldn't you say elevators are more important than new fare gates? I know I would. I know everybody in a wheelchair on.
Of course, but you just asked me to solve fare evasion like this. So I'm telling you the bottom line, which is it's expensive to solve fare evasion.
Stop making buses free.
Say
you
again?
can easily solve fare evasion. The problem with the fare evasion on the select buses was that they had the people getting on the bus and checking everybody, make sure they had the ticket.
Well, they have
and that was a
fare
stupid
collection
system.
Right.
That was a stupid
system.
They
still have Eagle teams. They still check the tickets. They do.
It's a stupid system. They should be on the stride walk, and they check it when you get off. It keeps the bus moving. The biggest problem with that is
when I've been checked, but when I have been checked, it's been when I've gotten off the bus. So they do that.
On 79th Street and 86th Street on the select bus, they get on the bus and they scan everyone's phone and they make sure and it holds the bus up. For
there was a recent crackdown where they did that, but I think the previous practice was to scan upon exit. Anyway,
so if you start cracking down on it, like you said, 700 million to 700 million, if you start doing it more, people will be afraid of it more, and you'll see that number drop. And you're not going to have to spend.
The city has issued hundreds of thousands of tickets, right? They've spent hundreds of millions on overtime, and they've said that fare evasion apparently has come down. I mean, I take all the stats with a grain of salt, but it has apparently come down.
It's seen every single day. I happen to ask a bus driver.
I know, but you're one person. You have to look at the system of more than 6 million rides a day.
I'm on the subway.
How many people don't pay? I said, about a third.
Right. Yeah,
that's on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, the fare evasion. Listen, the fare evasion on buses are infinitely worse than they are in the subways. Okay,
so the MTA data show that as well, but I would, with a caveat that it's hard to tell whether a bus rider has paid the fare because some of them have an unlimited card and some of them will pay at the subway or have paid on the subway and don't dip or swipe.
Okay, I'm gonna say this. And again, I take trains, buses every day. Okay. I watch people get on the buses. They will walk past, they won't eat. Some of them, most of them, depending on which bus in which borough, most of them will not tap, will not dip their Metro card, will not put any coins in the fare box. They will walk right past the bus operator and not even acknowledge their freaking presence. They will walk.
I hear what you're saying. I totally get that.
And I see this. Excuse me. I live in Brooklyn. I see it all the time. They these bus operators. They get beaten down. And here's the thing. Transit explicitly tells the bus operators do not engage because if they say, oh no, we're not going to give you a ride, then they're afraid that they're going to get into a fight with the bus operator. The bus operator gets beaten up and what happens then?
No,
okay.
You're absolutely right.
So again, let's not pretend like these things aren't happening just to advance a particular narrative.
Oh no, of course. I'm just saying this is why it's particularly difficult to estimate bus fare evasion with accuracy. That's all. We're not saying it doesn't happen.
And that actually just gave me a good idea. And this is a perfect example of why things like this, us discussing, needs to happen more. And why having hearings at City Hall at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday needs to change. Okay. But
I would agree with that.
Bus marshals? Bus marshals. You put one on every line. You never know where they are. They're a plainclothes cop. Okay. They work for the MTA police. You don't know where they are. And if somebody gets on, boom, they get arrested. They don't get a ticket. They get arrested. Arrest them. I guarantee you things are going to start changing.
Fare evasion actually used to be a much more severe. It used to be like they used to be
arrestable misdemeanor.
It was an arrestable misdemeanor. It was also considered a theft of services a charge, right. Meaning that if a person evaded a fare and they were caught, they could actually lose access to employment by the state of New York or by the state or by the city of New York.
And social services.
I can tell you, and social services. So, and that has been, and fare evasion has been completely decriminalized by white liberals who are afraid of being called racist. White liberals in the Democratic Party who are afraid of being called racist. And unfortunately, not enforcing the law or making it easier to break the law has created the chaos that we now have. So
fare evasion is now
saying.
Officially deemed by the state of New York and the city of New York as just being simply stunning and brave, gentlemen. So that's the official policy.
Okay. No, if that were true, why would we spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year policing it? Right. I mean, it's true that
hilarious.
Prosecutors declined to prosecute it beginning, several years ago, and that has undoubtedly had an impact. But at the same time, we're also ticketing hundreds of thousands of people, arresting plenty of people for it today, and spending hundreds of millions of dollars on policing to do it. So we may be doing more than one thing at once, but it's a complicated picture.
We're not doing it on the bus. And what about the pilot programs of free buses? You're telling me that the MTA needs money, and at the same time, 116th Street, they had a pilot program of everybody rides for free.
And so the legislature voted to do it. The MTA opposed it. It came up for a vote the next year. They voted it down. It's over. We're not doing that now.
Right. So, but my point is, why is that even an idea?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. Bus riders are, by and large, quite low income. Bus assaults, as Isaiah pointed out, are largely driven by disputes over the fare. When they implemented the pilot, they found ridership was up, assaults were down, right? I mean, these were the indicators they were looking at, and that was the outcome they got.
How many people ride the subway or bus every day on estimate? I'll give you a little math.
There are over 6 million rides, so we don't know how many people are taking how many rides, but it's over 6 million rides between the two, and it's about 2/3 subway.
How many homeless people are masturbating on each subway car a day?
6 million.
About 7,000.
Assuming everybody pays, you make an extra $600,000 a day if you were to raise the price from $2.90 to $3. I don't know anybody in this city that is going to notice the difference of 10 cents in their life on every subway ride or bus ride. $600,000 a day.
But the fare is going to go up to $3 probably in the next several months. So we will be where you want us to be.
That's $54 million in 3 months.
Not nothing. That's why it's going up. We're on a cycle of biannual fare increases. We skipped 2021 because there were so few riders, but we're otherwise doing that. We're on that track. The fare will be $3 before you know.
Why are we not looking at where this money is going?
Oh,
that's the better part. That's the bigger question.
That would potentially ruin a lot of Democrat politicians' careers, I think, Charlie, and their friends. So
probably.
I mean, no problem ruining Republican politicians' careers either.
That's true.
Same way as you, Charlie.
But ruiner.
I feel the same way as you.
But because that really. Hold on a second, Charlie. You touched on a massive point right there. That's been lost in this entire conversation.
Oh, today, but not generally. It comes up, and I talk about it every day. And the MTA's operating budget is $20 billion, right? It employs 75,000 people, right? The money is going in the door and out the door. It's going to the workforce, by and large.
I spent 3 hours today trying to find an itemized budget for the MTA.
It's
almost
hundreds of pages long.
I mean, you have people.
So they vote on the budget every December. You can find hundreds of pages of budget documents from each December from the board.
You can't, though. You can't. It's not readily available. It's not on their website. It's not on the state website.
It is, though. It is on their website. They vote on.
Call up Elon. Call up Elon. I'll call Big Balls. We need Doge on the case, man.
I mean, that's the thing, though. It's like.
So the Secretary of Transportation offered us Doge. They offered MTA Doge, but it wasn't taken very seriously given the track record that Doge has had. What the MTA has done is they've produced, a series of cost savings. I think $3 billion over 5 years, but it's still an immense amount of money. No matter how we slice it, it's going to be an immense amount of money.
Hold on. What is this reputation that Doge has exactly, Danny?
You questioning Elon, Danny?
Being a little too good at their job?
I wouldn't say that.
I mean, but what is their reputation though? I mean, that's a serious question.
No, I mean, what I would say, so that's a good question, right? I mean, I don't know who you talk to on a daily basis. The people I talk to on a daily basis think it's causing chaos, and that it's reflected in the fact that Musk is leaving and that Trump's polling is down, right? I mean, it's real.
All right. Well,
If you ask anybody at any company or in any government agency, do you want somebody to come in and cut the fat? They're going to say no.
Of course.
That's survival. So why would we ask the MTA, do you want us to come in there and get rid of the fat? They're going to be like, oh, yeah, come fire half of us. No problem.
Well, the MTA is not
exactly
right. But
come see where we're putting this money.
So the MTA has tens of thousands of people who are running and maintaining buses and trains 24/7.
And who's holding them accountable?
The transit workers? Who's holding transit workers
the MTA
accountable?
Is an organization. No, the MTA
we're
is an
talking.
organization.
No,
the state comptroller, the attorney general, the inspector general, the legislature, Congress, right? There's all sorts of oversight bodies. The idea that it's not being overseen is not true. It's it's hard. It's time consuming.
It's not happening.
You think Letitia James has ever done anything that has to do with the MTA?
Of course.
And I'm not saying anything. I'm not a fan of hers, but anybody in that office, they've never done anything to do with the MTA. The governor is doing whatever she can to make herself look good by way of the MTA. And she's doing whatever she can to try to get reelected, which she probably won't.
This is a conversation that I have
and to get Riders Alliance and their fellow travelers off her back. Let's just call it what it is.
So, I mean, here's our lane, because we believe in accountability, right? We describe ourselves as an accountability organization, and what we mean is accountable to riders' needs. So we have a lot of frustrations with, over the last decade, things the MTA has prioritized because of who the governor was that we don't think were priorities, like fancy tunnel tiles, right? Like these bells and whistles or that. What we want is a laser-like focus on fast, frequent, reliable, accessible service. The things that make a difference to riders. So we're not too into power washing the trains or sprucing up the stations. We know that what people want is to get in and get out safely and comfortably and affordably. And that's the priority. That should be the priority that the MTA has. And they have to serve a lot of different interests, but by and large, what they have to do is serve the riders. There's more than 6 million a day.
That's exactly right. They have to serve the riders, and the riders are the ones who are supporting them. Why are the drivers serving the riders?
Because the drivers couldn't get anywhere without most people riding. That's why.
That doesn't make any sense.
But it does. I mean, there are a lot of externalities of driving generally, right? You talked about, the environment earlier, but the externalities of driving in the core of Manhattan are more than elsewhere, right? In terms of the honking, in terms of the crashes, in terms of raising the cost of everything, right? The Partnership for New York City, studies shows.
So why did the for-hire vehicles without passengers get exemptions?
Because they're paying when they do have a passenger, right? They're
paying because they're paying for the lobbying. You can't argue that one. You cannot argue.
The reason they spent a lot of money invading the market, 100%.
Exactly. 100%. They spent a lot of money.
But they are also paying when they have a passenger, right? It's both can be true.
No, they are not. The passenger
when they have a passenger. No, they pay when they have
it gets passed on to the passenger.
It's $1.50.
Everything gets passed on to the passenger. Of course it does.
Okay, so the driver is never paying.
The driver
the driver is not paying.
The driver,
I can tell you.
No, of course the driver's not paying. Of course the driver's not paying, but the driver is being paid by the passenger who's also paying the other fees.
Right. But somebody who has an Uber, it's their own car. They have a license. They want to take their family to dinner in that car. They don't have to pay the congestion toll.
If I were tweaking the system, I would do your tweak. Absolutely. Yes, they should.
All right.
They should. Yeah.
They should not be on the road if they don't have a rider. Period.
I mean, their business model is picking up at the door. Their business model is not being at a taxi stand. I don't ride in those cars, so I don't have a dog in the fight. But I'm just telling you why they were able to sort of gain the foothold is, yes, very aggressive lobbying, but also providing a very seductive convenience, right? Which is being able to get picked up wherever your phone is.
And they can get picked up wherever your phone is.
Right.
But while they're waiting to go pick someone up, they shouldn't be driving around because A, it's annoying having them driving around, but B, it is a danger.
100%. 100%.
They're exempt from getting it pulled over, looking at their phone. If I'm texting and driving, I get a ticket. But if they're picking up their fare and seeing where they're picking up, they don't get a ticket. Do you know that before there was Uber and Lyft, and still for a for-hire vehicle, if you call, a limousine company or any, what's the CLS, the one who does everything for the entertainment people, they have two-way radios in their cars. They're not allowed to use their phones.
That's very old school. Yeah,
no, I hear you. To use their phones because a two-way radio, you don't have to look at it. You pick it up, you talk, you hear where you have to go, you push a button, you say it's just like a truck driver. Okay, they're looking at their phones. They're looking at addresses. They're trying to decide which ride they want to take. Do they want the one that's going to be expensive or not expensive? What's the rating of the passenger? And most of them are playing one service off of another, where they have the Uber phone, they have the Lyft phone in one hand, and they're bumping into cars and they're hitting people.
And that's how rat terriers get hit, Daniel.
Those are the cars.
She's had a lot of close calls. I hear that.
And congestion.
Listen. On that note, though, I do need to take her out in a couple minutes, so I need to skedaddle, unfortunately.
Okay.
So can we agree on this, that there are other ways
some of the communists would say,
congestion? Here, Bulldog wants to say hello to you. There you go.
There you go.
The real dog. Hey, there we go.
That's
a real dog, not glorified rodent. Perlstein.
What the?
She ate a rat terrier for breakfast this morning, just so you know.
Oh, right? My God.
But can we agree, before you go, that there are other ways we can ease congestion, raise money for the MTA, and better spend that money?
I mean,
that could have been looked
in the abstract, of course, there are different ways of making policy.
So
this is the one that happened.
How do we do it? So how do we do it? You're the lobbyist.
Hold on.
How do we do
it? Hold on. But let me add that. Let me add a caveat to that. How do we do that without congestion pricing?
See, I would argue we need both, right? I mean, we need both, and I don't think we need to do without congestion pricing, because I think what we have with congestion pricing is a price that's closer to right than it was before. Right? We were giving something away that was very valuable, and now we're putting a small courtesy on it.
Will it ever end?
Will congestion pricing end? It hasn't ended anywhere else it's been tried, right? It's working in Stockholm, it's working in London, it's working in Singapore. I don't think it's going to end.
The purpose is to raise money for the MTA for all these improvements, and you get all these improvements, shouldn't it then stop?
I mean, so the bridge tolls are a good case, right? Like the bridge tolls were long. The bridge bonds were long paid off, but the Port Authority and the MTA bridges are still tolled.
Not all of them. We're still paying off the Verrazano.
Fair, but we could have paid it off a little bit faster. It's been 6 decades. But those were 60-year bonds on the Verrazano. They've been refinanced. I mean, no.
Exactly, no. But on the Triborough, which I refuse to call the RFK Bridge because that was the biggest waste of money in changing signs, on the Triborough Bridge, those bonds were paid off and they lowered the cost for New York State residents.
Oh, with Easy, you're saying, right? You have a New York State Easy Pass.
You pay less, right? You pay less than somebody with an out-of-state plate or somebody without Easy Pass. So why is there not a discount for New York State or New York City residents in congestion?
So unfortunately, I think that discount days could be. I could see the Supreme Court not when that case makes it there. I don't know that we'll be able to keep that discount. To me, that discriminates against out-of-state residents. As a lawyer, I don't know.
So we're gonna have to leave it there. So Danny can walk his dog. Sir, we do appreciate you coming on to the show tonight. It took a lot of bravery.
Likewise. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. Absolutely.
And no, I appreciate that though. I appreciate you coming and at least humanizing your position a bit. I do appreciate that a bit, and we do give. And I'd like to think I'm fair, so I give you proper credit for coming into hostile territory and speaking to us like.
Of course,
like a communist. So we
unlike
have
some people
honestly,
who I called asking to have a civil conversation who refused.
Yeah, I saw the harangue you sent him. I saw that.
Furnace, right?
Unbelievable.
That son of a
bitch.
bitch.
Thanks so much. We appreciate your time, man.
Next.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks for coming.
Have a good night.
Appreciate you.
That was good. That was interesting.
Good. I like that.
I have to say, I mean, I'm still not convinced. I'm not convinced at all.
Because there are other ways to do this, and nobody gave the other ways a shot. Nobody gave anybody the opportunity to discuss other solutions. And that's the problem. because the lobbyist groups, and it was pointed out right there at the end, the lobbyist groups that are funded by the for-hire companies like Uber and Lyft, who during the pandemic made so much money with Uber Eats and all of that nonsense, they then had their projections of profits go so sky high that to keep their profits that high, they had to come up with a way of making people more dependent upon them. And that's why they started funneling money into this nonsense with the bike lanes, with the congestion pricing, with making congestion so people don't want to actually go out to dinner. Oh, you know what? Let's just stay home and order through Uber Eats. That's how they made it so that they get a $21 an hour minimum wage for app delivery riders.
Fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
How come somebody who works for a restaurant isn't doing that?
Yeah,
I
and
live above
completely.
a restaurant. The guys who deliver for the restaurant don't make that much money. So how come you make that much money if you work for Seamless? That's bullshit. So all this does is help them make money. And we need to get that out of it. And the biggest way to do that in New York City and in New York State, and I know it's probably never going to happen, but one day, who knows, somebody may actually have a bill on the table that'll do it, is that the money donated to campaigns should come from potential direct constituents only. There is absolutely no reason why somebody in the Upper East Side should be giving money to a city council campaign in Brooklyn just because that person's up for re-election and they want another voice like theirs. They are supposed to be representing their district, not the corporations, not people in San Francisco who are making money, and not people who work for organizations like the Riders Alliance or Transportation Alternatives that are funded by those companies. It's absolute nonsense. On top of it, the city is wasting so much money in matching funds for these campaigns that go nowhere. I know somebody who ran for office. Matching funds go nowhere. They get wasted or they get stolen. If I'm running for office and I want to steal money, I'm going to print a bunch of flyers from Isaiah's printing company. And when I get audited, I'm going to say, oh, I handed out all the flyers. Guess what? Isaiah kept half the money and I kept half the money.
Exactly.
Just give me a receipt. It's nonsense.
It is nonsense.
It's all about the money. And until we change the ability for people like three of us and Danny, if he didn't work for Riders Alliance, because both views need to be heard, until we change the ability for people who work every day to show up at City Hall and actually speak our mind, whether it's the transportation nonsense, whether it's bikes, whether it's potholes, whether it's congestion pricing, whether it's what's being taught in schools or any of that, nothing is going to change. You see videos of places all over the country where they hold their public meetings at night so people can go, or on the weekend where people can go. And New York City is run completely differently, where only during the day can people who have the ability to leave work or who are getting paid to do so go and testify in person. And it's absolutely disgusting. I watch my city council representative sit in a diner most days eating breakfast for 3 hours. I'm not going to name her. You can figure out who she is if you look at my Twitter feed. But I'm sorry, X feed. They don't do anything except what the money tells them to do. And they serve their own interests so they can stay in office for their 3 terms and then springboard from that to the next office. And that's how we get the Brad Landers and the rest of the nonsense Mark Levine career politicians running the city. So that's my testimony.
Charlie, come on. That's a saving democracy people, man. Those are the people who's saving democracy Democrats, man. Come on, you know.
Yeah.
They're saving democracy. Yeah. You know, and they're looking out for the working class and the working man. That's who they're looking out for.
Criminals by not allowing background checks.
And illegal immigrants, of course.
I don't understand it. I really don't understand it.
So how'd you feel that went, Charlie?
I think it went well. I mean, Danny's a stand-up guy. He showed up. I see his points. I see his desire for change. I don't agree with them. And the biggest thing I don't agree with is the fact that nobody could get a word in edgewise prior to this happening.
Yeah, I agree. I hear your point, man. Yeah, they do it. They say they do it at times when people can't do it. Something to probably don't even tell everybody they're really doing it. It's not really.
Most people don't
know about it. Yeah, they don't even know what's happening. Yeah,
I hate the fact that
very
I hate
undemocratic.
the fact that it is. It's highly undemocratic, and I thought that was, and the one thing that bothered me deeply when I asked him was what would happen. Like, why wasn't any of this put?
I'm assuming Isaiah was talking about a referendum.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie. Speaking of that.
My God. Yeah, I was talking. No, this, you know what? I what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to buy like 50-foot of Ethernet cable and just run it through my apartment, because this is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
I cannot
it's been
even
a rough one.
This has been the roughest. Like, this has been the roughest time that I've had with this.
Your video's been frozen almost the whole time, I think, or like
oh my
half
God.
the time. Luckily, we're usually able to hear you, but
no, he's doing Tai Chi.
Yeah,
Tai
exactly.
Chi.
It's
the whole no, honestly, I've the whole my Wi-Fi connection tonight has just been like, this has been this all day.
Isaiah's on a 56K modem, guys.
Yeah, I'm on fucking dial-up tonight.
Isaiah, you have mail.
Yeah,
you have mail, my friend.
But no, it just bothers me because it's like this, like, congestion pricing. We are literally talking about.
Well, we're not talking about much.
Charlie, so a referendum. Let's talk about what
oh my God, this is.
I understand.
Let Charlie go for a second, Isaiah.
We don't do that for budgeting.
Yeah.
However, the people who show up to vote in New York City, it's alarming how few people show up to vote for local elections. Did you?
Oh my God.
In Bill de Blasio's last term, do you know the percentage of eligible voters in New York who voted for Bill de Blasio?
What was it, like
11%?
18%?
11%. 11% of eligible voters. Now, that's not registered voters. That's eligible voters living in New York City voting for Bill de Blasio to become mayor. He just had to get 11% to stay mayor, and he almost lost.
Jeez.
So
to a woman
one
with a
out of so one out of every, so basically 1 out of every 10 registered voter showed up to vote.
Eligible voter. It's about 2 out of every 10 registered voters. So about 20% of the registered voters, because it rained that day. It was a horrible rainy day. People didn't want to go. Like, whatever, it's mayor, who cares? And that's how a lot of this stuff happens.
Oh, yeah.
No one votes for governor. Nobody votes for the mayor. But then when it comes time every 4 years for somebody to go vote for president, the office that affects them the least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My life hasn't changed since January 20th. Whether you're for Trump or against Trump, you can say whatever you want. Your life has not really changed based on his policies since January 20th.
Unless you're a DEI worker working for the federal.
Well, your life should have changed a long time ago if that was the case. But
agreed.
You see people complaining about PBS and NPR losing their funding. Do you know how much their funding came from the federal government? Less than 15%. Less than 15%. We're not losing PBS. We're not losing NPR. We're just not
way too much, though. Still,
tax dollars anymore.
Yeah,
they're going to hold more fundraisers, and it'll be picked up somewhere else. That's it. But the media makes it seem like, oh my God, there's going to be no more Sesame Street.
Yeah, and there's going to be no more quote unquote journalism.
It just makes absolutely no sense to me. Whoa. Sorry.
Is that your bulldog?
No, that was a cat knocking over the dog's treats. Actually.
Oh my! Oh goodness.
No!
These cats.
Oh, they gonna beat his ass.
What do you think of that?
It's a cute boy.
Pumpkin.
I saw him admiring you while you were telling off Perlstein before. Charlie.
I got the other two in the bedroom.
He's like, "Oh, Dada."
I the thing that gets me, the thing that bothers me, is that none of this stuff goes to referendum. It never does. And the fact that this guy, that Perlstein was trying to sell us or sell the public on something that we ultimately have no say in drives me insane. And then you look at stuff like this, right? Where you've got
Gone again.
Maria G, who posted this yesterday. It was a video of an intersection in Queens that I am actually in Astoria that I'm familiar with. There's a panini shop not too far from here, 31st Avenue and 35th Street. This is
Isaiah, if you're posting a video, I don't know if we're able to see it, just so you know.
Oh boy.
Maybe you could try. Maybe. Actually, we might be able to see it.
Did it come through?
I'm seeing an image. Yeah, let's see if it works. Let's see if it works. I'll let you know.
Yeah, so New York City, NYC DOT will enforce laws. New York City, who's a friend of mine, says once again, sabotaging more streets and causing more gridlock. There needs to be a top-to-bottom review of this agency and its relationship with advocacy groups. So here's the new traffic pattern at 31st Avenue.
And 35th Street, I believe.
Yeah.
Go.
Oh my God.
Hey, these idiots in this neighborhood wanted bike lanes. What did the lights do? Is what I'm trying to figure out. They must both be green. Oh.
What the hell's going on here?
This is sick.
Whoa.
Yo, I'm literally gonna put this on Facebook. All the people that want to fight with me about this
That's going the wrong way.
Look at this.
I think I know that guy.
Oh my God. You want to have a bunch of fantasy planners. Good job.
There's nothing better than
this has been going on since 12 noon.
Good luck.
So apparently that went on for over 8 hours. And the reason is they took the turning lanes away to make them bike lanes, and they turned a two-way street into a one-way street, if my understanding is correct.
So making 35th Street. Yeah.
And they couldn't turn, and it created gridlock.
That is sadistic. That's sadism. It's sadism.
And that's not a busy area.
And hold on a second. And ladies and gentlemen, what you just, if you're, for those of you watching at home, what you just watched is exactly what they're trying to. It's exactly why these things never go to a referendum vote. You just saw it right there. The reason why none of these things ever go to a referendum vote is because the people in the neighborhoods know. They know that this stuff is going to happen. There is a
I mean, why would you let your plans of making money get ruined by a little thing called democracy?
I've shot a video of Broadway. Historically, Broadway from Central Park South, which is 59th Street, Broadway is one-way southbound, right? There is a block of Broadway between 18th and 19th Street in the Flatiron part of Manhattan. They made one block northbound.
Yep.
And what did that do? That created a bottleneck. That creates, so all the southbound traffic has to turn right onto 18th Street. And all the northbound traffic for people who want to make that one turn, that one right turn to go up Broadway,
I actually have a funny story about that intersection. I was driving south on Broadway, stopped at the light. The light turns green for me, and there's a guy walking very slowly. So I just tapped the horn. I don't think he knew that it was a red light for him. He stopped, started cursing me out. I wanted very much to get out of the car, but I didn't. Spit on the car, and then started giving me the finger while walking away. I had the light.
Oh my
That's how
God.
much people dislike it. I just don't understand. Now, we've always had New Yorkers who are just angry and fighting everything, but it's like they've put in people's heads that if somebody's driving a car, they're out to kill them. And that's just not the case. Sometimes somebody's trying to go to a doctor. Sometimes somebody's just getting to a wedding. Sometimes somebody's going to work or going to shop or whatever it is. Sometimes they're just out for a ride. I don't know many people that decide to just go for a ride in New York City, but there might
Some
be
people,
some.
some people definitely do. Yeah. Some people
Nobody
definitely do,
is
especially if they have
out there
nice cars.
looking to knock over pedestrians.
Yeah.
Nobody got in their car to do that today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's absolutely
Gentlemen, I'm going to restart my computer and let you so if I can't if the problem, because I'm having connectivity issues, if we can't fix these problems, we're going to end up having to end the stream early. So bear with me 1 second. I'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Nick, the floor is yours, guys.
All right.
We promise we won't talk about you.
Now we have a Mr. Substitute Teacher coming in, Mr. Chavez. Everybody pray. Everybody keep Isaiah and his connectivity in your thoughts and prayers. Hopefully we're able to continue this show. It'd be tragic if we had to cut it short.
Wi-Fi gods.
Yeah, pray to the Wi-Fi gods. Pray to Ryan Reynolds and Mint Mobile, whoever's doing his thing. But and Blake Lively. I mean, I think what's that? Go ahead, Charlie.
I just wish we had a way where we could get people who have common sense the ability to get their viewpoint and their words heard by city legislation, state legislation, but we can't, because they do this stuff during the day. I'm a real estate broker. I don't work normal hours. I could go down to City Hall, but most people can't. And because I don't work normal hours, I expect that I work when others don't, whether it be on the weekend or at night. City legislators should be doing the same. Give them the middle of the day off. I don't see why what they're doing that is so important in the middle of the day at City Hall that we can't have this. They have their meetings with the city officials then. And when it comes to testifying, have it at night, have it on the weekend. It's absolutely ridiculous, especially with the technology we have. We can do it from afar. But there's so many ways to raise money for the MTA, and there's so many better ways to cut down on congestion by getting rid of these for-hire vehicles. It's absolutely ridiculous that nobody will even listen to the suggestions.
Well, your video's back on. You're right, Charlie. It almost seems intentional, right? It almost seems like
it's definitely intentional.
People have made up their mind. People with a lot of money, whether it's the ride hire apps or whatever, like Lyft and Uber, and some people in government who can make some money. It was
intentional on Third Avenue when they changed the light pattern.
Yeah, painting contractors, whoever can make a little money. Yeah. And it's
that's
like,
the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. Hold on, I'm looking for video of that. The Third Avenue, the light, Third Avenue light pattern on NYC.
But it used to be sequenced for cars. Now it's sequenced for bikes, so cars stop every 2 blocks.
That is sickening. That is sickening.
Hold on. Videos of bike riders saying, I went from 57th Street to 93rd Street without stopping for a light. Okay. But you're one of nobody. City Bike on their highest day of ridership, less than 2%. If you assume every ride was an individual person and everybody lived in New York City, less than 2% of the population used City Bike. But we know that's not true. We know that people are using it at least twice a day, usually. And we know that people from outside the city are using it. So you're probably talking about somewhere around 0.9% of the population uses City Bike, but we've given up all these parking spaces. We've given up money. We've given up street infrastructure, all of this for what? It was a cute idea, but it just doesn't work.
What an expensive, cute idea that was, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's First Avenue. That's First Avenue at 89th Street. I have a very odd ability where if you show me a corner, I can tell you exactly where it is.
That's your mutant power. It's your X-Men power.
It's actually quite creepy.
Like a neighborhood watch camera or something.
Somebody sent me a picture of a bulldog today on the street. I said, where does the dog live? Because the picture's on 77th and Columbus. They're like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, well, that's what I know.
How did you know that?
I have never in my entire life seen a Department of Transportation actively working to destroy a certain mode of transportation in their jurisdiction. What's the justification for that?
All year round.
Right.
You can't bike in the snow.
You really can't.
You don't bike in the rain.
But yeah, so it's almost as if what we're seeing with congestion pricing and with all this other general urban, like all of like this entire urbanist agenda is designed
to piss Isaiah off.
Yeah, and his Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
That's how angry his Wi-Fi is. You know what it was? The technicians were on their way, but they were on bikes. They haven't gotten there yet. The guy in the truck couldn't get there because of the traffic. So they sent the bike rider. When I was 19, I worked at a ski resort. Well, I worked at a hill that they called a ski resort in Pennsylvania. I got hit in the head on Christmas Eve. They sent me home from the hospital. Got hit with the chairlift, and they said, if you wake up tomorrow, you feel nauseous, you have blurry vision, or you hear ringing in your ears, come back to the hospital. But I was snowed in. I woke up nauseous, blurry vision, ringing in my ears. So I called 911. They sent a snowmobile to pick me up.
Oh, that's sick.
If they were doing that, if we were allowed to use snowmobiles in the bike lanes, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
You get all weather.
Snowmobiles, can you use that in all weather? Can you use that?
Snowmobile? You can use them on snow and sand.
Snow and sand. Okay. I mean, that'd be useful for blizzards.
Yeah, but the thing is, you have to register them. They don't want you to register any e-bikes. So,
anyways, we just learned your superhero origin story, Charlie.
Sorry.
We just learned your superhero origin story. We get hit in the head.
Getting hit by a chairlift.
Now we know how you can identify any street. But again, I'm sorry. Finish your thought, brother.
No, I one thing I don't understand is the fight against registering e-bikes. They have a motor. It's simple. They should be insured and they should have registration. And
how fast can they go?
It depends on the bike, but some of them can go 15, 20 miles an hour. But even if they're going 10 miles an hour and they hit somebody's getting injured. Now, if you work for a restaurant as a delivery worker and you hit someone, they have registration on the bike. It says what the restaurant is, the number of the bike, and so forth. The restaurant's insurance policy is going to cover the injuries. But these individual contractors through these apps, the apps don't want their insurance to be involved. So they're fighting against it. Because let's be honest, most of these delivery workers can't afford to then pay insurance every month on the bike if they hit someone.
Yeah.
It should fall to whomever they're working for at the time, but they're fighting against it because that would raise their bills and decrease their profits.
Right.
So,
of course.
I do apologize, boys. I do apologize. Should
we cut it short, you think, Isaiah? Should we call it a night?
I think so, because
it's too much disruption.
It's way too much disruption and the
Let's just see how
It's already going. I'm just going to go ahead and stop the stream. Folks, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us for having us in your ear, on your computer, or wherever you chose to consume our content tonight. You will not be seeing us next week. However, you never know. We might actually have a show during the middle of the week. You never know.
Yeah, you never know, man.
You never know. Yo, shout to Charlie for coming on tonight. Thank you, brother.
Building Bulldog. Anything you want to plug,
Bulldog.
Charlie?
Yeah,
Anything you want to plug while you're here?
Yeah, you can check out my website, buildingsandbulldogs.com. If you need an apartment and you're looking to rent one, I'll probably be able to send you right to a landlord. If you're looking to buy one, I guarantee I get it cheaper.
Oh, all right. Cheap apartments,
there
man.
You go. Cheaper buildings. Is that correct? Buildingsandbulldogs.com.
That's me.
We want to thank Danny Perlstein for coming on, even though he is a dirty communist. And but we appreciate you coming on, brother. You know, it's brave to come into the lion's den.
Yes.
Apostate Radio.
Yes. I will give him
with the New York Bulldog, the building Bulldog here, Charlie Panoff, with the sage, Nasser Chavez, the sage of the tri-state, and of course the firebrand, the Black Rush Limbaugh, Isaiah L. Carter, at Isaiah L. Carter. You can follow me at Nostra Chavez on X.
I really appreciate
Follow
it.
at me. Apostate Radio, at Apostate Radio NY. Follow us.
Yes, absolutely.